The Integrity Commission is insisting that it cannot certify the Prime Minister's assets, liabilities and income unless the Financial Investigations Division (FID) examines the matter.
Jamaica's PM Andrew Holness was investigated by the Integrity Commission, and what else it found will shock you. You know what? Let's jet into this story. Welcome to Jet. So first,
You mean welcome back, Mr. Jet?
wow, it is so good to have you back. We all missed you, and I'm sure many will be happy to hear your voice again.
Yes, man, I am so glad to be back. And I'm very, very grateful for your work and the others who have taken on the mantle and carry on Jet's work. I am so grateful to everyone, particularly you, because you've played a major role in this project. I'm so grateful. Thank you, and thank everyone so much for running the show while Jet was away. If you want to see her back to do a video from time to time, just write in the comment section, bring back the girl. Yes, man, and trust me, she will be back. Anyway, let's move on to this topic. Oh, the Jet man is back and he's flying high. But before I fly high, give thanks to Yahuwah and to his son Yahushua HaMashiach. Yes, man. So first and foremost, before we get into why the Integrity Commission uncovered very little on some aspect, but shockingly more on others. So Diane Jackson Miller did an extensive reading of the Integrity Commission's report on Prime Minister Andrew Holness. Well, now Dr. Andrew Holness, yeah man, the man gone large, the man become a doctor. Yes man, that's how things said. And she read the major findings and, in fact she read the summary of the report and the conclusion of the Integrity Commission. And what they found will shock you either way, but it is inconclusive from Jet's view that whether Dr. Holness had enriched himself illicitly. So therefore, they need to be further probed. So, we're none the wiser. We're still in the dark, so to speak. But I want to thank Diane Jackson for her work. And if you want to see her full reading, then you'll go over to her YouTube channel and have a look at that. But I will be reacting to her summary or her reading of the Integrity Commission's report. Yes, man. So people, do the right thing, no man. For those of you who new join the channel, just subscribe to the channel right now. And I can see that a lot of people have been watching, but they're not subscribing. Come on, man. Subscribe to the channel and touch up the like button, man. It won't cost anything to subscribe and to touch up the like button. I'm back, man. Send your gratitude to Mr. Jet by, as you join the channel, just like, and if you're new, subscribe. Yes, man. Here we go.
Has asked the Director of Investigations to investigate, saying there were concerns that he owned assets that were disproportionate to his lawful earnings for the 2021 declaration period. In other words, they looked at his numbers and they said, oh, you have a certain amount of money, but we don't know how you got it because your income, what we're seeing in terms of your lawful earnings, don't seem to match up with how much money or how many assets you have in all. And that was the basis of the investigation, of the request, I should say, for the director to investigate. So it was on that basis he said that he started the investigation, and he did say that he was unable to arrive at a conclusion regarding illicit enrichment in respect of Mr. Holness, as he did not have access to a schedule of Mr. Holness's personal expenses over the period, and due to unresolved questions concerning the operation of companies with which he is connected. But he said he nevertheless conducted a net worth analysis in respect of Mr. Holness and a company that is wholly owned by Mr. Holness. He said the analysis didn't show any unexplained growth in Mr. Holness's net worth for 2021, but it showed unexplained growth in Mr. Holness's net worth for the year 2022.
The Integrity Commission found nothing in 2021, but found very little, if not anything whatsoever, or cannot explain anything regarding Brogard, as he often referred to, for 2022, and therefore it authorized or ask other agency to investigate, and therefore we're none the wiser whether there are any illicit enrichment by the Prime Minister where that is regard. But there's more to come. We need to get deeper into the findings and to try and ascertain what little, if any, or what was surprising, if any, while Dan continued to read the summary. Yes, man.
After that second referral, the director's investigation led him, he said, to examine over 3,600 transactions in respect of about 28 bank accounts which either were or are presently associated with Mr. Holness. They got over 80 witness statements and they held judicial hearings. And they also asked Mr. Holness for some explanations of some of the findings they were making. All of this would help to explain why it was the investigation took so long.
28 bank accounts, bro. God, where are you with so much bank account, man? I say you have too much money that you just have to you share them all over a different bank account. I bet you can't even remember where all these bank accounts, how much money you have in them and all of that. Obviously, well, you don't need so much bank account. But anyway, that is the Prime Minister's business. If he wants 100 bank accounts, it is up to him to have 100 bank accounts. But I wonder why the Commissioner would want to probe deeper into the Prime Minister's financial affairs, and perhaps in order to protect the integrity of the agency, then one would best to appoint financial forensic analysts who may well be able to dig deeper into the Prime Minister's accounts and flush out, in and out transaction, and try and find out what really a gwan pan what a gwan. Yes, man. So Mr. Holness, seems like the Integrity Commission was thorough, but let's wait and see. We don't know yet. Let's wait and see.
Also said, given the complexity and the volume of transactions involved, an independent international forensic accounting examiner was engaged to determine, among other things, the nature and extent of the interplay between Mr. Holness and 3 connected companies, Imperium, Estate Bridge, and Positive Media Solution. And they said, based on the volume of transactions observed in the bank accounts, the forensic examiner took about 6 months to complete his examination and submit its report.
Well, the independent financial forensic analysis looking into Dr. Andrew Holness's financial affairs as to whether there are any illicit enrichment took 6 months to come to a conclusion. Was that long enough? For 28 accounts and taking 6 months? I don't think that's long enough. So maybe there's nothing there. There wasn't any smoking gun. There's nothing untoward. The Prime Minister must have been squeaky clean. And because normally these financial analysis normally take years, man. Sometime a year at least. But 6 months to come to, to report back and to see whether Brogard did I go on with not nanky panky, Well, let's wait and see what the Commissioner found after that analysis.
Director concludes that Mr. Holness was required to file statutory declarations, which he did, and the director further concludes that Mr. Holness failed to include in them at least 4 bank accounts jointly held by him at the time. And let me just deal with that very quickly, because the Director of Corruption Prosecutions now looked at that issue. She said of the 4 bank accounts, 3 of them were supposedly held by Mr. Holness along with a family member. The third was supposedly held by him along with a former constituency worker. Mr. Holness said in relation to the accounts that his name was on with his family members, that his name was added for survivorship. In other words, if the parent dies, then the account is automatically his without having to go through probate. That's what that is. He says he doesn't remember why his name is on the account of his former worker. But in any event, he said these were accounts that he didn't have anything to do with. He doesn't know anything about the source of funds. The Director of Corruption Prosecution said in relation to 2 of the accounts, there is insufficient evidence to show that he was actually a joint account holder during the time period. In respect of the other 2, she said, looking at the transactions on the account, one of them, the one with the constituency worker, there were no funds coming from Mr. Holness's personal account to that particular account. What they saw was the earnings, the salary coming in for the worker. In relation to the other account, there were about 10 transactions over a 6-year period from Mr. Holness's personal account to that account, which was held by a family member. And she said there wasn't anything to contradict his explanation in relation to these accounts, and that therefore there was not sufficient evidence to establish that he had made a false statement in the statutory declaration, meaning that yes, 2 of the accounts he should have declared, but they couldn't prove that he had the mental element, what's called the mens rea, to show that he was deliberately making a false statement.
Yes, Jackson Miller was just using legal terms, mens rea and actus rea. Mens rea mean the mind is guilty of something, so he knowingly mislead them, and that could be a sort of criminal charges and so on. So that's all she was saying. 4 more accounts, bro God, with your name associated with it. Wow. Let me see now, because I can't count, so that would make it what 28 plus 32. I think 32. Correct me now, guys, if me get it wrong. But because me can't count, so me have to try and see if you guys they can help me. But Dr. Holness, wow, so many accounts, man. And I wonder why people kind of think something may be funny going on. But thinking and reality are 2 different things. So they didn't find anything anyway, apart from money going in for salary for the farmer constituency worker and the other 3. We all do this from time to time. Left money, our giant account would be pitting them. If anything happen, then we pitting them can get we account rather than the government take it. Very, 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 very a very good move from the Prime Minister's parents. So what else did the commissioner found?
Director concludes that on the basis of the analysis conducted on Mr. Holness's / Imperium's assets, liabilities and income for 2021, there does not appear to be any unexplained growth in net worth. But in 2022, the director found what appeared to be unexplained growth in Mr. Holness / Imperium's net worth of just over $1.9 million. The director's conclusion is premised on the fact that based on the evidence available to him, including the explanations provided by Mr. Holness, the increase in Mr. Holness's asset or net worth cannot be, without more, be justified by his known income and liabilities. It says the director was, however, hindered in his attempt to fully resolve the issue on the basis of Mr. Holness's refusal to provide him with a breakdown of his expenses for the period covered by the investigation. This refusal on the part of Mr. Holness inhibited the director's ability to make a more comprehensive and final assessment of Mr. Holness's assets, liabilities and income. In other words, the director was not in a position to determine what portion of Mr. Holness's income was used for living and other expenses and therefore not available for asset acquisition.
That no look good enough, bro God. Especially when the commissioner wasn't able to flush out the meat off of the bone to try and find out how the money is spent, how much you pay for travel, how much you pay for food, how much you pay for lunch, how much you pay for furniture, and how much you make and then you take out all your expense and what your profit, and then you file your tax, and then whatever left, then you get your profit. But let's see what else the commissioner found.
They also said the question surrounding use of funds belonging to Positive Jamaica Foundation to partially purchase a bond worth $94,000 and the operation of companies with which Mr. Holness is/was associated and which he named as source of funds to acquire particular assets would need to be resolved by the relevant entities before the director can make a final conclusion on the question of illicit enrichment. They say significant financial transactions were seen among three of the companies, Imperium, Positive Media, and Estate Bridge, and more particularly, the evidence indicates deposits of over $473 million and withdrawals of $427 million between 2020 and June 2023. Now, they spoke of this bond. It's a $94,000 bond that Mr. Holness acquired in September 2019, and the director says only about $61,892.98 was funded by him. The rest was taken from funds apparently belonging to a registered charity, Positive Jamaica Foundation, of which Mr. Holness was a director. And the issue here is source of funds. Where did the funds come from to buy the bond? The director says Mr. Holness's indication that the full portion of the bond was erroneously attributed to him by NCB Capital Markets is misleading and unsupported by the evidence. So they mention a number of issues. They said the conclusion is based on one, Mr. Holness had throughout the life of the bond reported it to the commission in his statutory declarations as his asset. It was never indicated it didn't belong fully to him. Two, Mr. Holness, before buying the bond, had entered into a written bond purchase agreement clearly stating the value of the bond. Three, NCB Capital Markets said that in buying the bond, they acted on Mr. Holness's written instructions and that he didn't raise any concerns in relation to any contrary intention. Concerns were only raised by Mr. Holness in June 2024 when Capital Markets made contact with him to ascertain source of funds for the purchase. They say four, he got a regular statement showing the value of the bond, and five, when proceeds from another bond were erroneously deposited in his account, he reported it to NCB Capital Markets. They made the adjustments. There were no indication at the time that there was an error in respect of the $94,000 bond. And they said six, when the bond was called in 2020, principal and interest were paid to Mr. Holness. And they said the asset in totality was treated as belonging to him in every material respect up to June 2024, when the director's investigations led to inquiries being made of Mr. Holness as to source of funds. Mr. Holness's explanation in this regard must therefore, says the director, be rejected and deemed to be unsatisfactory.
Boy, bro, God, the Integrity Commission never like that explanation there, no. Them not happy with it at all. At all. But I think further down in the video, I think Mr. Holness, Dr. Holness addressed that issue and say some sort of mistake with the bank. I don't know if it's related to that specific finding by the Integrity Commission, but he did say there are some discrepancies in relation to the bank and wrong information being given by the bank and so on. So let's wait and see. But what else did the Integrity Commissioner found?
Director concludes that the funding of the company Positive Media, in which Imperium, which is wholly owned by Mr. Holness, was a majority shareholder before being replaced by one of Mr. Holness's sons in 2022. They said the funding of that company raises concerns as to the true nature of the company's operations. This because they said Mr. Holness's explanation about the funding of the company, he said Positive Media is funded by Imperium, but the director said the evidence suggests that Positive Media was funding Imperium rather than Imperium funding Positive Media. Amounts totaling over $70 million were transferred from Positive Media to Imperium and over $50 million from Imperium to Positive Media during the period. surplus of about 20 million remained in Imperium's account, and that will need to be ventilated, he says, by the relevant authority. The director...
Well, incompetence accounting or financial blunder. I mean, who knows? There is unexplained transitioning funds from one place to the next, to which the Integrity Commissioner found. But, you know, we just have to wait and see, because there should be other investigations to go on. But what really strikes me the most is this coming up now, this aspect of the investigation coming up now.
Concludes that the filing of nil income tax returns for the years 2021 and 2022 on the part of Imperium Estate Bridge and Positive Media in circumstances where the companies reported income and other business activities in their audited financial statements poses significant tax compliance concerns. And they say that the director further concludes that the filing of a nil income tax return and income tax return with income of $355,100 by Green Emerald in 2021 and 22 in circumstances where this company had provided short-term loans to Positive Media of over 20 million and appeared to be in operation also raises serious tax compliance concerns. They say it's accepted and understood that a company, though operating at a loss, may be in a position to offer loans. But the issue here is whether the companies had any income and expenses over the period which were not disclosed to Tax Administration of Jamaica. The director further concludes that this conduct on the part of the principals of Imperium, Estate Bridge, Positive Media and Green Emerald prima facie, on the face of it, constitutes a fundamental undermining of the tax laws and particularly a breach of Section 99(1) of the Income Tax Act.
This is what concerned me. Government will chase down people who don't pay tax and say, boy, you need to pay tax, you know, because at the end of the day, without the tax, we can't run a country. But when a member of the government running their business, and it appears as if found by the Integrity Commission that the government did not pay any tax whatsoever for a particular period, it is definitely shocking and it is definitely irresponsible, because on the one hand, you can't be telling people to pay their tax, but you not pay for you. Not no go so. So wagwan. I mean, you know, what go on? What's the explanation for that, bro God? I mean, show us no man. We not see the expenses and expenditure for show us, well, you know, make no profit, man. I mean, not me, show the Integrity Commission. I mean, I want to see it. But anyway, that is not acceptable whatsoever.
Recommendations. The director recommended that the report be referred to the Director of Public Prosecutions on that issue of making a false statement. That in relation to the accounts, we've dealt with that. In relation to the filing of nil tax returns on the part of Imperium Estate Bridge, Positive Media and Green Emerald in circumstances where these entities appeared to be engaged in business activities, the director recommends that a copy of this report be referred to Tax Administration Jamaica for the necessary assessment to be made and where required for appropriate penalties to be imposed. Having regard to questions around the funding and operations of Positive Media, Positive Jamaica Foundation and Green Emerald, the director recommends that a copy of this report be referred to the Financial Investigation Division for investigation to be conducted. The finding of the director's investigation raises significant questions around the income generating capacity of the companies relative to the funds which have been identified in their accounts. In the case of Positive Media, the loans issued / transfers made to Imperium. In the case of Green Emerald, the issues were the loans issued to Positive Media, and in the case of Positive Jamaica Foundation, that was the circumstances surrounding the alleged use of funds belonging to Positive Jamaica as a partial source of funds for that $94,000 bond. The director says his powers and limited resources and the exigencies in relation to remit and time do not allow him to sufficiently ventilate this issue.
So the Integrity Commission made a series of recommendations, including possible prosecution, it appears, and other agency to investigate. and it is whether those other agencies will investigate or whether there's sufficient evidence to investigate and so on. But it concludes nothing, very, very little. Now, to suggest that in 2022 there is unexplained enrichment doesn't necessarily mean that it is not explained. Well, one could argue, why did the Prime Minister not explain it or provide a schedule or provide expenses, cost and expenses and so on, is a matter for the authorities to look into. But the Integrity Commission found no illicit enrichment, so it found very little, but found a lot when it regards to tax evasion, tax avoidance, call it what you may wish, to some extent, or just merely a lapse of judgment or a lapse of filing or whatever the case may be. We don't know the circumstances around it, but you can't ask if you pay tax, Prime Minister, and you're not paying a tax, or your business not paying a tax. No go so. So that is clear where the commissioner found. But what does the Prime Minister have to say about all of this?
Based on what is said in the summary, queries were triggered because it is alleged that I had omitted bank accounts from my declarations, and one of these accounts was incorrectly reported as a US dollar balance by a financial institution. These matters were cleared as the accounts in question, by my recollection, were dormant, previously reported, and the balance in them were around Jamaican $3,000 and 200 euros. Subsequently, my declarations were once again referred for further scrutiny for accuracy and completeness. Other accounts were identified and alleged to be belonging to me, but undeclared. Some of these accounts were opened by my parents as far back as 1975, and my name later added, probably while I was still a child. Many Jamaicans add their children to their accounts for survivorship reasons and in the event of emergencies. I have never claimed these as my assets, and I am satisfied that the Director of Corruption Prosecution ruled that there was insufficient evidence to support claims that I intentionally omitted bank accounts from my declarations, and that there is greater evidence to support my explanation as opposed to evidence to the contrary.
Well, the Prime Minister is right, because a lot of parents used to do that back in the days. Always put them pitney name on their account, just in case if anything wrong with them, then the government or the bank that take them money, so then pitney can't get them money. So there was nothing funny about the Prime Minister's name on other accounts, to which his parents added his name to it, and those explanation by the Corruption Commission, as they're called, didn't find anything, funny going on there.
This effort to pursue me and my affairs led to the hiring of an international forensic accounting examiner for 6 months. As far as I am aware, only my 2021 declaration was submitted for investigation. After this most thorough interrogation of my personal affairs, which is not in any way connected to public funds or a benefit resulting from my office, they were unable to conclude regarding illicit enrichment. Nonetheless, they concluded that in one of the 5 years they examined, 2022, there was unexplained growth in my net worth of 1.9 million Jamaican dollars, or less than 1% of my total net assets. I reject this finding based on materiality and significance, And while I have not had a chance to fully review the specifics of their calculations, just a cursory review of their formula, I have seen an error in figures they have used in their calculations. And therefore, I challenge this finding on incorrect use of data. I reject the finding that I acquired an asset for which the source of funds is not adequately explained. The Commission, in its own report, pointed out that this whole episode started with an incorrect statement from a bank. It started with an incorrect statement from a bank. A bank gave a balance verification that I had funds in US dollars, which was incorrect. So too was the asset in question, the subject of errors by the financial institution that managed the asset. While I authorized the transaction, from the outset of the acquisition of the asset in 2019, I was unaware that the financial institution had assigned an amount in error to my account from an associated company. A year later, the investment instrument, a bond, was called by the issuer, and the financial institution made another error and pooled my funds with the associated company. As soon as I discovered this pooling, which is acknowledged in the report, I alerted the institution and instructed that the accounts be correctly separated. However, the initial incorrect assignment was not corrected at that time. I only became aware of the discrepancy when the institution alerted me in June of this year, and once it was brought to my attention, the funds incorrectly assigned to my account in 2019 was rectified.
So the PM has said the bank fault. Come on, bank, why you make the people investigate the man and come up with all kind of unexplained money when you know, so you give some false figures or some incorrect figures, and you know the PM have to correct it. So did that affect the outcome of the Integrity Commission? How much role did that play? Did that significantly affect the outcome of the Integrity Commission's report? We don't know, but it appears as if the PM is saying that may have played some part into the findings and the conclusion they reached. And the PM also said there was some incorrect calculations as well. But let's listen on to hear what the PM is saying.
I also reject claims in the report that I have hindered the examination of my declarations by not supplying information requested. Let it be known that I have complied with any obligation placed on me within the law. As far as I am aware, the company with which I am directly associated is compliant and up to date with its filings. Mr. Speaker, I have been involved in political life for more than 30 years. Yes, more than 30 years. And I have been elected in this House for 27 years. It always gives me a sense of great pride, but also a sense of humility to consider that, you know, I grew up in a 2-bedroom board house at 56 Cumberland Road, just up from the Grassyard Market in Spanish Town. I don't wear my background as a badge or try to exploit it or exploit my humble beginnings for political sympathy. I don't do it. I don't do it because I believe in working for what you have, regardless of where you come from. And Mr. Speaker, I have worked hard. You know, people just see the achievements. They don't know the hours, the nights, the hard work. They don't know. I have worked hard, wisely, and honestly to achieve whatever I have. I never had a gold spoon, and I have never depended on the public purse. Indeed, I gave up my salary. I gave up the salary due, the salary increase due to prime ministers, in solidarity with all the people who are challenged to make ends meet with their own incomes. I didn't take it and pretend to give it to entities that are in my interest anyway. No. On principle, I didn't take it. I have the privilege, I consider it a privilege, Mr. Speaker, and awesome responsibility of leading this country, and I take it seriously. Regardless of the attempts to distract me and unnecessarily consume my time, I have never lost focus on ensuring a stable, resilient, and growing economy, reducing unemployment, improving our security as a nation, building out our infrastructure, and providing support for the most vulnerable in our society.
Well, the Prime Minister assured us that he complied with the Integrity Commission within the law. I like that, Mr. Prime Minister. I mean, anything outside of the law, then you're not going to comply, isn't it? You're not going to incriminate yourself, isn't it? And the Prime Minister also talked about his humble beginnings and, you know, growing up as a poor man, and he worked his way to the top, and, you know, he worked really, really hard. You never see the blood, sweat, and tears he had to go through in order to get to the stage where he is. So the Prime Minister said, not too bad mind, man. People don't so bad mind, man. The man work hard and earning money and want pine fingers say corruption. Well, no evidence there. The people in bad mind, he never born with no gold spoon, as he puts it. I don't know if he's trying to point finger at Mr. Golden, who have a British ancestry, who may have started him out with a more hefty type of finances, and he gave up his salary. And it is true, the Prime Minister did and does help poor people from time to time. I remember in one of my videos he helped a woman with a donkey and a plucker for a chicken and so on. So Jet is going to conclude that the Integrity Commission found nothing with illicit enrichment, although there are questions to answer, but found tax wasn't being paid, and that the Prime Minister has to answer for, because it is not any hypocrisy or double standard kind of statement where you say we should pay tax and then your company don't want to pay no tax. No go so. So that is shocking to Jet, because Jet didn't expect that there was going to be any situation where the tax for the country were not paid. What is your view? So do you believe the Prime Minister may have enriched himself illicitly? Or do you think that he needs to answer more questions? Or you think there's a witch hunt, then just want to find something upon the man and them fail? Or the Prime Minister was being clever in omitting information? We don't know. And therefore, the conclusion is where it at based on his handling of the investigation. Write your comments below, man, and let's have a discussion about this. For those of you who forgotten to subscribe, please touch the like button, smash the subscribe button, and touch up the bell, and remember to share with your friends and family. So here we are going now. We're going to jet off,